everyone. Today I'll be showcasing another one of my bad drawings. We'll be working on a men's vest. I've already started it. This is the vest. You know, my husband, he is very traditional. He wanted a black vest, and since this loom that I'm working on has got a certain type of peg, you know, because it's you can't just use any type of thread on it because it won't come out properly. You won't have tight stitches like this, you know, if you use yarn that is not the correct gauge. So for this I actually used two types of thread. One is actually thicker than the other. The one is 12 ply and the other is 8 ply. One uses 5.5 millimeter needles and or crochet hook, and the other uses a 4 millimeter crochet hook. So together I suppose you could say that they form a maybe 5, no, probably no, sorry, not 5, probably 7, could be 7 millimeter thread gauge. But anyway, I'm not terribly sure when you combine two things what they come up with, you know, because let's see, this is a 6 millimeter hook. Yeah, actually 6 also can. I think it's probably 7. Probably more comfortably it will work with a 7 millimeter hook. Let me just check that. That one was a 6, 7. This is actually another 6. I don't seem to be able to find my 7 millimeter hook. This one is, I don't even know how much this is. Oh, this is 9. Sorry, just give me a moment. There it is. This is my 7. My goodness, it's huge. I don't think it's going very well. One sec. Just want to see whether how much I would be able to make with this. Yeah, actually it's quite comfortable with the 7. Yeah. So I would say this is about 7, the combination. Not terribly sure about it. No, it's just a gauge, approximate gauge. The two sides are going to be worked separately. Okay. Now a men's vest. Of course, I try to persuade my husband about the buttonholes, but he insists on having buttonholes. You know, I'm not sure he's going to go for the anti-clasps. That's not his style. He's very conservative. Alright, now what you need to do is that you need to work, I'm giving it a width of about, this is for about a medium size to large men's vest. So this is a 21-inch back. Of course the front will be smaller because you have to take off a few of the pegs for the neck. Now after you have cast on for 21 inches, I have worked it out on this loom which has got 62 pegs. You need to cast on 59 pegs. Now I'm not going to show you how to do this. If you want to know how to cast on and various other things, including the decrease, you will have to look at my video, women's V-neck cardigan. That one gives you quite a good quite detailed instructions on how to reduce and cast and so on. I wouldn't say it's good. That would be praising my own work, so that's rather embarrassing, so I should not do that. But what I'm trying to say is that if you want instructions on how to do them, you can just refer to that video. If you don't want to refer to that video, you can always look up on YouTube, just look for cast off for sleeve or sleeve decrease on a loom, or just stitch decrease on a loom, and I think you should come across how to do it. But if you don't want to, you can always look at my video. Now the indentation of the sleeve here, I have put it at 2 3/4 inch. See these measurements, 2 3/4 inch, and this is exact, but this one is a bit it could be 2.8 or less, or 2.9. You know, this is not really very precise when you do it on the loom. So I've given it an approximate 2 3/4 inch just for the sake of giving measurements, you know, but actually I think it might be a little more than that. And you will end up with a bag which has got 15.5 the width, the back at the neck and shoulders are 15.5 after you have done a decrease. The decrease is to be 8 stitches on each side. You decrease 8 stitches on each side. I know my drawing is a bit lopsided, no, because this part of the sleeve looks deeper than this one, but actually it's supposed to be even. Now after you've done this decrease of 8 stitches on each side from the 59 pegs, you will be left with 43 pegs on the top. So when you finish here at 15.5, you begin the decrease. When you finish the decrease, you will have 15.5 inches, which is equivalent to 43 pegs on the top. Now what I've done is, when I cast on, I started here, I went all the way and I stopped here. I left, here, these 3 here, these 3, I didn't work them. So that gave me 59 pegs. Now I've already done a reduction of 4 here. 1, 2, 3, 4 stitches I've already reduced on both sides of the men's vest. You see here, this is the width of the vest, and I have already worked here the stitch decrease. You can see it. You see it's beginning to slope inwards. I know it's a little difficult to see because of the black color, but if I put my finger there, you should be able to see that it's beginning to go inward. You know, from here it's going inward. Now this is not as gradual as the one I did for the women's vest, because the sleeve indentation, the part that goes in, has to be a rather abrupt turn, you know, so you get a very sharp turn for the sleeve here. Now when you work the front, you have to take away 7 stitches for the neck, which gives you 52 pegs. 52 pegs divided by 2, because you have to do 2 fronts, gives you 26 pegs. Now remember, when you work the sleeves on the front, you have to work them on opposite sides. Don't work both on one side. If you work both on one side, you will have a cardigan, a men's vest that has sleeve decreases on the same side, which of course will not make you a cardigan, because you know both the sleeves are wrong. So you have to do one on the left and one on the right. Remember that. Now it's the same thing. You do the same decrease, 8 stitches here. After you have done the decrease, you will be left with 18 pegs. After I finished, you've made up the cardigan by joining the sides and everything. We will make a band that goes along the front and around the neck and back down again, which I did the same thing for the women's V-neck cardigan. So I will come back to this and show you as we progress. I just thought I'd better mention how to do the decreases at the point when you start at 15.5. On the diagram I said you would have to start decrease at 15.5. See, 15.5 you start the decrease. At 15.5, when you start the decrease, you start it from here, this side, and when you do one decrease, you just lift this on top of this and then knit it off, you know, like the way that I showed on the other video. Then you knit off 2 stitches. Then you come to this side and you do the same on this side. The next row after you've done the decrease, you do it normally. Then when you come back, you do another decrease. That means you're doing a decrease every other row. And you work off until you've worked off 16 rows, which will give you 8 stitches that you have reduced. I also forgot to mention that when you finish decreasing for the front, you will end up with a 6.5 inch width for the shoulder and neck area. Okay, I thought I'd just show you the last decrease I'm doing. I've already done, as you can see, the gradual, well, it's not gradual, it's quite a deep in curve of the sleeve, you know. Now this is the one I just did one row of decrease. I've now decreased 1 2 3 4 5 6 7. So this next upcoming one will be the very last decrease that I'm working. Then you work the cardigan till it achieves a length of 25 inches. Of course, the final piece will be slightly longer than that because we will be adding single crochet to prevent the curling of the bottom. So usually I use single crochet instead of doing a rib because I find it easier, far less work than just knitting, you know. Crochet is much faster for me because some people would prefer to knit. If you prefer to knit, then by all means do a ribbing and then you start the main body of the sweater. But if you decide to do a ribbing of 2 or 3 inches, perhaps it would be better if you take that into account, you know. Use that as part of the measurements for the 25 inches. I'm using my left hand because on the camera it's much easier to show it with this hand, you know, which I'm not very good at this with this hand. I'm faster with the other hand. You know, when you use yarn on these kind of looms and all that, if you're not happy with the look, you know, when you start it and you find that if there's a lot of big spacing in between and all that, that means the thickness of your yarn is not sufficient for these pegs, you know. Then you have to either add another ball of yarn or you get thicker gauge. That means the yarn itself is thicker, you know. You can either put 2 or 3 strands or you can choose to use thicker yarn. That's one way of getting out of the problem, because the gauge on these pegs cannot be changed, you know, they are fixed. So the only choice you have is either to work with thicker yarn or more strands, you know. If you find that you have baby fingering yarn or you know, worsted, and oh yeah, supposed to stop it just before the 2, you know. Now what you do is work with this hand. You take this, oh no, sorry, this one you finish it. When you come back, you do the decrease. All right, now you lift it, put it here, and then you knit it off. Knit it off one at a time. You don't have to lift both over, you know. Why struggle? Just do it one at a time. Now you go back. When you reach the other end, you do the same. Lift this, put it here, and knit it off. And that will be the very last decrease. I would have done 8 stitches if I do that. Actually, there are lots and lots of patterns that you can come across, you know, if you look on the internet. And you know, if you by looking at the pattern, you might be able to adapt it also on your own if you want to work on something that you see. If it's within the 22-inch measurement of loom, which is the maximum here is 22. I think the other type, there are some looms that are larger, you know. I think from Knitting Board, I think they have some larger looms, you know. So if you find that you want something even bigger, then you can buy one of those looms and then work the pattern on that, you know. the important thing to realize is that you must not be intimidated by the fact that in those instructions they would probably tell you work rib in this amount and all that. All you need to do is just use the same instructions, only work it in your on the loom instead. If of course you can't really follow the number of stitches there, so you have to use ratio, calculate, and with that system you'll be able to pretty much pick up any pattern that you find and work it. Oops. Wow, that would have been bad if it came off. Lucky it didn't. Whenever I'm showing other people, I mean, whenever I try to do a video, and I'm always making mistakes, I notice. Not a very good teacher, obviously. Or I'm almost approaching the other side. Now we will do the final decrease. This will be the final decrease that we're doing. Lift it, put it here, and knit it off. One and the other one. There. Alright. So there you have it, the decrease. Now you just work it till this thing measures 25. From bottom to the top it measures 25, cast off. A very good method of making sure that you do not make mistakes when you're doing the left front and the right front. See, I finished the, oh, this would be the right front. See, the stitch reduction is quite obvious now, you see. That's the stitch reduction for the armhole. So it gives you a narrow top, while the bottom is wider, as you can see, it's wider here. Now, the very good method of making sure that you don't make a mistake is when you do the first side, you start from here. So when you do the reduction, you can count 8 stitches, because it's 8 stitches the reduction. You will count 8 stitches, and when you are finished, you will know that you have done 8 stitches, you see. And when you do the other side, the left front, you make sure that you count from here 26 stitches, and you start the piece from the bottom at 26. I've already decreased 2 stitches now. So this is how you make sure that you don't make a mistake when you are doing the left front and the right front, because the sleeve reduction are on opposite sides, you know. You don't want to make a mistake and make the reduction on the same side, you know, all that work will be wasted. The other point I wanted to make was when you're knitting, as you can see, you see this one is a bit thick because of the fact that I've used 2 different strands of wool, you know. And whereas some of the other pieces that I worked on, they were actually softer, you know. One sec, I'll bring one. What I was trying to point out earlier was that, you know, when we were talking about knitting on the loom and how you must always make the stitching very, very loose, you know. One of the main reasons, there are a couple of reasons that I would like to point out why I think that you should always break the habit of knitting tightly. Now, the first reason, when you're knitting, you're always making a movement with your wrist like this, you know. If you're going to do your stitching extremely tight, what will happen over time is that you're going to cause a lot of stress on your wrists. And you don't want to, you know, I mean, basically you're going to be doing this, repeating a process over and over again. This is one of the ways that you can actually injure your wrists, and this is not something that you would want for yourself, you know. So right from the beginning, when you learn to loom knit, always loom knit very, very loosely. Don't pull tightly and knit it, because not only are you causing wear and tear on your joints, especially your wrists and your hands, you're also actually causing a great deal of stress on the loom itself, and the wear on the loom is quite significant, causing the loom perhaps, you know, not to last as long as you would like it to. And this is not a good idea for both your limbs and the loom. Now the other point I wanted to make is that if you knit too tightly, the other problem that you will come across is that your work will be very, very hard, you know. It won't be very flexible, you know. Like you see this, see how the cloth is, I mean the weave, the material, you know, that you have done, your knit, is extremely loose, you know, and it's soft, and you want soft knitted pieces, you know, so that when you wear them they are comfortable, you know. And one of the ways to create soft pieces is by not knitting tightly. Knitting tightly creates a tight weave, you know, very tight weave, and it causes it to become stiff, and that isn't very nice, you know, to use them when they're like that. So as far as possible, even if you are a tight knitter by nature, try to break yourself of that habit. Practice and make sure that you don't do this anymore, you know. And that's very important, because you're going to be doing this for hours and hours. Try not to cause a great deal of strain on your wrist, and also on the loom itself, you know. I mean, why waste money buying another loom when you can make one last a long time? Now, okay, I'm going to do another decrease here. What you'll be doing is that you lift this and just put it, of course when I'm showing I have to make a mistake lah. You take both the stitches, and since it was two strands, that's why you saw two of them. Okay, there, I put them on the next peg, knit them off. You can knit them off one stitch at a time, don't have to pull both over, it's not okay. So there, another I've already knitted off 1 2 3. I've decreased 3 stitches. You see, it's easy to count because you started from here, so you will know by one glance that you have knitted off 3. And you continue knitting it off. This is your next decrease, and you continue doing this until you have decreased 8 stitches for the sleeve. The back also decrease 8 stitches on each side. The front decreases 8 stitch on one side. And like I told you, always make sure that you do, when you start knitting the front, you do one from the start, that you make it end here, and the other one you start here, so that when you decrease here and you decrease here. This way you are always sure that your decreases are on the right side of your cardigan. Okay, I have completed the back and the 2 fronts. There are 2 fronts with the sleeve on opposite sides, the decrease, one on this side and the other one on this side. See, this is the decrease. Both on opposite sides. Now you take the back piece first of all, and since you are left with, from the pattern, you are left with 18 pegs on each of the left front, and right front will have 18 pegs. So what you need to do is, it won't stay, okay, what you need to do is to count 18 and put a marker, and from here you count 18 and you put a marker. Then right sides facing, take the right one. This one has got the sleeve on this side, means it's on this side. This is the one for this side. Right sides, always remember, right sides facing. This one is here. Right sides facing. come all the way up to here. Make sure you join this. Always remember, like I told you before, you take this one and you join it to this one. That means if there is a chain stitch like this, there's a chain stitch, no? 1, 2. You take this one, the furthest away from you here, and the closest on this side. These two together, you chain, you sew, or you use a crochet needle and join them up. And do that to both the left front and this side. Again, do the same thing, join them, and once you have joined that, you join up the sides. Once we've done that, we'll come back. I have now finished joining the shoulders and also the sides of this vest, and as you can see, it's very dark, you know, because it's black, so it's difficult to see stitching, you know, on black. As you can see, I used 2 strands of different gauge, you know, the 2 different threads. Sorry, the yarn was of 2 different gauges, because the pegs on the loom couldn't take one or the other, so I decided to combine them. Now here I've done the slip stitch using a crochet needle. That's how I joined them up here, and you can see here, hang on, there, can you see that? This is where the joining is, that line. That's the join. And here, this is where the join is. Can hardly be seen, you know, using single crochet. That's the join at the back. Now, I intend to use single crochet to do about this much thickness of single crochet for the arm band, and also the front band here, all along around the neck. There will be another band. When I've completed the bands in single crochet, I will show you the finished product. Oh yes, I will be also working the buttonholes, you see, so I'll show you how to do the buttonholes when I'm doing the band. Now I realize that if I were to try and show you how to do the buttonhole on the black cardigan, the black vest that I'm making for my husband, none of you will be able to see it all because it's so dark and the stitches are not going to be very clear. So I thought I'd demonstrate using this color thread instead, so that you'll be able to see better. Now, before I show, I did a little bit so that there will be some foundation for us to see. This button, if you look at it, if you look at this button, you see it's about 3 single crochets. See? 1, 2, 3. If you do it 3, it will be too loose. Like here, this one I did 3, you know, and it's a bit loose. So this time round, I'm going to try and do it as 2 single crochet, the whole. You know, the way that I'm crocheting now is actually very different from how I actually learned to crochet. When I learned to crochet from my mother, who learned it from her mother, my grandmother actually taught my mother a very bad way of crocheting, you know. They would hold the needle and like this, and then she would constantly hit the side, you know. And this one is a rather thick needle, but the one that my grandmother used to use was actually quite fine, like a 2mm hook, you know, and so this hook used to actually make her fingers bleed. And so this, my mother taught me this method, and when I started making, I used to do these kind of things where you would crochet beads, you know, and make chains and bracelets and all this kind of different kind of craft work, you know. And one of my colleagues, actually, she was the one who taught me how to do it. She said, why are you doing crochet in this terrible method where you're hurting your fingers, you know? And she asked me to change, and it was so difficult, you know. It took me so many months to get rid of the terrible habit that I had picked up, you know, how to crochet properly. That's why when we were talking about bad habits, I always think that it is not easy, of course, to break oneself of a bad habit, but if it is going to improve your improve how you crochet, knit, or whatever, you should do it, you know. It's worth the investment. Anyway, no bleeding fingers and band-aid. Alright, now this, we decided that we were going to do, that it was going to be about two single crochet. So what you do is, you see this 1 2, we're going to do it here 2, so you chain 2, 1 2. After you chain 2, you skip these 2 stitches and single crochet into the stitch after that. Sorry if there's noise in the background. Family is watching television. Hope it's not too distracting. Now when you reach the part where you had done the 2 chain, what you do is you single crochet into the hole, into the space that was created by the 2 chain. You do 2 single crochet into that space, and then you continue with your single crochet. Now let's have a look at it, okay? This was 3, which was too big. Now this is the 2. Now you see it goes in nicely, and it doesn't slip off easily either. It stays. This is the perfect fit, snug fit for a buttonhole. I'll come back and show you how to mark the cardigan and to place your buttonholes. This is the cardigan, and remember, when you are doing buttonholes, if you are doing it for a man, the buttonhole should be on the left, and if you're doing it for a woman's cardigan, the buttonholes should be on the right, because that's how I don't really know why it's like that, but anyway, that's the universal way that they do things. So what you do is you just take the cardigan, you put it on. After you put it on, you mark the first, where you're going to place your first buttonhole, you know, approximately where it's going to be. So when you come back and do the single crochet band, when you reach here, you will place your first buttonhole, you know. This will be the center mark. Then from there, you place them at exact intervals, you know, so that they close properly, you know. This one comes all the way up to here, it will be. So this is where you're going to place your buttonholes. So what you do is you start your single crochet here. You start it here from one end. You go all the way down, and then you go towards the back of the neck. Towards the back of the neck. Then you come back down again on this side. You work about 2-3 rows of single crochet, depending on how big a band you're making. You know, if you're making like about 6 or 5 rows of single crochet, when you reach the third row you make the first buttonhole, like I showed you on the other thread. You make the first buttonhole, and then when you reach here you do the second one, the third and the fourth. Then on the return trip, the return row, you close off the buttonholes, and then you finish off with another row. So this way the buttonhole will be somewhere in the center of your band that is coming here. Okay, I finished the front band. As you can see, this is the front band. It's been worked in single crochet all the way down. I think about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 rows of single crochet, and I think it was on the 6th row that I did the buttonhole. And the buttonholes are not very big, because you know earlier I showed you a maroon button, but turned out my husband, you know, he didn't really like that maroon button, so he asked me to get some black ones. I was so conservative. Anyway, there, these are the buttons, so that's why the buttonholes are so small. And I've done a couple of rows, 2 rows here for the sleeve. That one is for that sleeve, and I'll be doing the other sleeve. And I also did 2 rows down here for the bottom of it, so it stopped curling, you know. And I think that's about it, you know, it's done. Okay, let's have a look at it from above. This is the finished vest. Of course, it's not going to look, the neck part will actually open out like that a bit, you know, because it's going to be a V neck. Hopefully I can get my husband to model it for you. The crochet needle I used for this, a crochet hook I used, was a 7mm hook. Actually, this is not a very good hook, you know, it's plastic. Should get me a good metal hook. So that's the cardigan. I haven't finished the other sleeve yet, just this one, and of course I haven't sewn in all the insides. Well, hopefully we'll see each other again on my next project.